Hello everyone and welcome to Stan the Wine Man TV. I am your host, Stan Rattan, and this is the Blue Collar Wine Show where I help you spend your wine dollars wisely. As you've noticed, I haven't really done much with the studio. I'm going to work on it soon, hopefully to get this back in shape. Actually, I haven't TikToked either, so I'm kind of slacking just a little bit. And it's been a minute since I put up an episode. But I thought it'd be kind of fun to do maybe what I consider lighter style reds, maybe not necessarily softer, but lighter style reds, which are good for the summertime. Last thing you want, most of us, although I sometimes do, just the way I am, will break out a Cab or a Merlot or a Syrah during the summer. Now you're barbecuing, you might pull out a Zinfandel just because it goes great with barbecue chicken, things like that. But just a lighter, fair red for the warmer weather. And I decided to start off with Nebbiolo. Nebbiolo is the grape of Barolo and Barbaresco. However, most of us can't afford to be buying those big boys all the time. They are a little bit more money than a Nebbiolo that does not come from Barolo, a city, a town, and Barbaresco, a town. Different towns, different sort of areas. Barbaresco is considered to be more feminine in style. Barolo, big muscly styles. So those are two designated regions that, they're kind of the quintessential wines of northern Italy. They're highly regarded. A lot of people collect them. They do age very well. They tend to be bigger, structured wines, but not heavy. Not heavy in fruit. They're old world, remember that. And they work very well with food, which makes sense because they come from Italy. Well, I'm going to go to what is called Langhe Nebbiolo. These are Nebbiolos that are not in those towns, from those regions, and they demand far less money, but you get to enjoy the grape without the price. You get the point. So we're going to start off right away, and it's interesting, Nebbiolo, Nebbia means fog, and in the valleys of Piedmont, fog will settle into the valleys in the morning, so they named it Nebbiolo. Now when I was there, my wife and I were there, we had a great time. We went there on our honeymoon, and I didn't really notice the fog, but it might have been the time of year that we were there around April. But in the wintertime, fall, the fog settles in. So Nebbiolo, Nebbia, is what they call fog in Italy. Anyway, so we're going to get started right away. So here's a chance to try Nebbiolo without spending a ton of cash. For instance, I have this one. We actually visited Odero, and this is a Barbaresco, so a little bit more feminine in style. This demands over $50 a bottle. Of course, that's going in the cellar. I bought it because we went there. Just for memories. But let's get started right away. Let's enjoy Nebbiolo, which I think is a great food wine, especially with some of the food that we eat during the summer. Meats, barbecue, it works with all of that. This is the Tintero Langhe Nebbiolo, and this rolls in at $14. This is imported by Kermit Lynch, a very famous importer. This is 14.5 alcohol. Langhe Nebbiolo. Langhe is a region, so the Nebbiolos tend to be a little bit less there. $14, great price. A lot of people go, really? You can get a Nebbiolo for $14? Yes, you can. So there's the bottle. And we are going to, thanks to Bob Ward, shout out to Bob and Kathy Ward. I did a tasting at their house, and he gave me this whiteboard because he said you're always complaining about not having a whiteboard for showing off the color of the wine. Nebbiolos tend to be a little bit lighter. You can see through them. This one's kind of rose-colored, lighter red, hedging towards, light red. Let's just go there. I told you I'm terrible at color. So can you see that? It's fairly clear. Thank you, Bob. Cool little whiteboard. Put it over there. Let's see what we get on the nose. A little licorice, cherries. It's interesting, I would never encourage a new wine drinker to start off with Nebbiolo. I compare wine to coffee. In other words, when I started drinking coffee, when I was a kid, hanging out at the lumberyard with my dad, I used to put cream and sugar cubes in there and I'd drink it. Oh, it's delicious. And then slowly but surely I weaned off of that. And now I drink coffee black. In fact, I drink it strong and black. So wine, I believe, is the same way. A lot of people start off with maybe a fruitier, more sweeter style red, and then they graduate and eventually they find themselves liking things like Nebbiolo. I would never start a newbie on Nebbiolo because it doesn't have that big fruit floral style. Although I think Robert Parker in his heyday tried to get him to make it that way. Just saying. So licorice, kind of red flowers, cherries. A little bit of a kind of a bark, dry bark action, a little forest floor. I love the almost a little mushroom component coming through as well. I love the licorice on this one. Red flowers, cherries, I'm even getting a little red berry. And some dried herbs as well. Interesting on the nose. Let's see what we get on the palate. This is one of the things I like about Nebbiolo, and this is not for everybody, but this has got a little bit of that rustiness to it, a little rust component coming through, but nice cherry notes, red flower notes, and this one has a spice component on the finish, which is really interesting. Kind of reminds me a bit of a Grenache in that spice component. You know, this doesn't have a lot of new oak because it would not have new oak. Oak sometimes gives spice to the wine. Impart spice to the wine is what I'm trying to say. This has that spiciness. Not too rusty. I think that somebody breaking into Nebbiolo may say, well, this isn't too bad. The licorice notes come through on the back end. I'm even getting slight strawberry tones coming through on the mid palate into the finish. Really good QPR, quality to price ratio, $14, excellent wine. I really like this wine. I like the spice. I like the earthiness, the savory components. I like the dried herbs that come through and the strawberry cherry notes with a little bit of red flower petals coming through as well. This is an excellent wine for $14 and a good introduction into Nebbiolo and what it's all about. So there you go. And I'm going to go BB plus on that one. I think for the money, one of the better Nebbiolos I've tried. Good start. I love it. So this is a Villadoria Bricco Magno Langhe Nebbiolo 2020. Let me get back. I think this is 2022. Yes, the other one's 2022. This is 2020. This rolls in at $20. A 2020 at 20. You gotta love it. We saw a lot of this wine at the store. Let's give it a little rinse. Now this one is really a lot lighter than the other one, which is typical of Nebbiolo. I just think that first one would be a great introductory one. So the color on this is super light. You can see through this a lot more than you can see through the other one. That could be a vintage thing, of course. There you go. See how light that is? I hope you can see that. Bob, let me know if that works a little bit better. I like it. Little corks around the board. Pretty cool. Let's see what we can get on the nose. Not quite as intense on the nose. It's a little lighter. I get the rust on the nose with this one. Definitely some red flowers coming through. A little strawberry action. A little licorice as well on this one. And there's that kind of like they say garrigue, which means a kind of dried herb component coming through. And savory. Let's see what we get on the palate. Now this is a lot lighter than the first one. Very interesting, very feminine, for lack of a better term. The other one was more like Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is more like Scarlett Johansson is what I was thinking. So just a little more feminine, you know, a little bit prettier on the palate. Classic, rusty, savory, herbal, dried herbs, strawberry, cherry, and really nice flower notes coming through on this one as well. Red flower, not violet. I'd say more red flower. So I would, you know, for me, lamb would be a good one with this one if you're doing some sort of a lamb, ham. This is just a nice light wine. It would go with pizza as well, of course. If you're doing hot dogs, if you're into pairing wine with hot dogs, this would be a classic hot dog wine. I like it quite a bit. It's not as big as the other one. I would have did them in reverse order, but I never kind of tasted all these together, so I didn't have a clue. A lot of earth tones coming through on this one, and a little citrus element coming through as well on the finish. There's a tiny bit of grip on it. This is the difference between, let's say, a Langhe Nebbiolo. You don't get the big, as big of tannins on the Langhe Nebbiolos as you do the Barbarescos and Barolos, which makes it easier to do. This wine, I would say, I would graduate a wine drinker into it. I really like this wine. I'm going to give it a straight up B-. Very solid Langhe Nebbiolo for $20, which is a great value. So let's move on to the 2023 Michael Jordan Padera Luigi Einaudi Langhe Nebbiolo Padera Einaudi Einaudi. I knew this was hard. I knew this would be hard to say. This is a little bit more. This is $33, so not chump change for a lot of us. Just saying. This guy is a fantastic producer up in the northern Italy. Very well respected producer. So I'm excited to try this. $33. Let's see. Color. Let's move these out of the way. I got my board. So again, this is as light as the second one, not quite as dark as the first one. This is what you kind of expect from Nebbiolo. Most of them are not dark. A real red, light red color. Let's see what we get on the nose. A little menthol coming through, almost like a eucalyptus tone coming through. Big time, actually. Red flowers, kind of like a eucalyptus strawberry cherry milkshake. Big time red flowers, a little bit of rust coming through on the nose as well. And I get a hint of licorice. Let's see what we get on the palate. It's kind of a sexy Nebbiolo, actually. I really like this one. The first one, nice introductory Nebbiolo. The second one, more, you know, what I would expect from a Nebbiolo, a little thinner, maybe not like Barolo or Barbaresco, but kind of rusty, lighter style. This is also light, but it has an intensity on the mid palate that's pretty impressive to me. I get that kind of mushroom, rust, strawberry, cherry, red flower thing. So it intensifies on the mid palate. It hits you initially, but then it has this nice intensity on the mid palate into the finish. The rust notes come through on the back end. A little bit of dried herb, red flower petals. A little grip, just a little bit of grip. This guy's also makes some serious Barbaresco. I think he's into the Barbaresco. I believe so. Not sure about that. But I believe he does. Well, he obviously makes some of the bigger wines. Has a little tobacco on the finish and a little bit of spice coming through. More complexity on this one than the other two. I mean, it's $33, but that's not a huge price to pay for the quality that this one delivers, for sure. I know I always like it. Of course, you know I like it when the less expensive wines show better. I do think this would be a great introductory wine. I think for $14 it is an absolute steal. I like the second one a lot, but this one really, really showcases Nebbiolo from Langhe big time. I'm going to go straight up A. I think this is a solid Nebbiolo. And again, I get some coffee tones coming. This has some very impressive complexity. I'm even getting a hit of black olive in the mid palate where it really pops. Very impressive wine. So if you want a lighter style wine for the summertime when you don't really, now this is not a porch pounder. You don't sit on the back deck and slug down a Nebbiolo, although you might be, a Langhe Nebbiolo, although you might be able to a little bit with this one, but most times it needs food, which we expect from European wines. I mean, they really do build their wines for food. They're big time into that, and there's a lot of good pairings with Nebbiolo. But I think some of the foods I mentioned that most of us eat, you can have it with leek soup. There's some nice cheeses, some stinky cheeses that this would really work well with. So think that. Great wines for the summertime. And in my next episode, I'm really excited because I have a new lighter style wine that I really just kind of really dig, really love it. And I'm going to share it with you guys in the next episode. For the meantime, seek out, if you want to know what Barbaresco and Barolos taste like to an extent, but you don't want to spend the money, seek out Langhe Nebiolos. They're great values, and they really do show you what Nebbiolo is all about. Thanks for taking a little time out of your day. Please subscribe to my channel if you want to see what's coming up next. And I appreciate all that have subscribed. You keep watching, and I'll keep helping you spend your wine dollars wisely.